TVOT.
Hello. Welcome to the Creative Visions 2 session. And I think I mentioned yesterday this was a little bit of an experiment, but I'm really very excited about what we've been able to do and who we've been able to pull together for this session. Of course, Nick DeMartino Consulting is going to lead it. Who better to lead it? Who understands the art world and the science and the technology world. And we have four really great, amazing people. And these people I've gathered together because they are real leaders in design, some of the most innovative stuff in interactivity and content. And these are people who are really stars in our industry. So if you welcome Nick and to the stage. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Tracy. Some of you were probably at the Creative Visions session we had yesterday. Thanks for your feedback. It was incredible. You know, when I moderate panels, I like to try to do what every good storyteller does and come up with a narrative. And but I can't do it with this group in advance because I really won't know until we've done it. But yesterday, I feel like, and maybe this will turn out to be true, did you remember that great film, Powers of 10, which zoomed from the universe down into the microcosm, into the cellular level, and then back again, you know, kind of showing that we're all kind of one, and yet we're cellular at the same time. I feel like that's what's going on here, where there are people who are making specific works at the granular level. There are people who are enabling containers that allow consumers to discover things, and there are people who are looking at the broad sweep of history and trying to make sense of where we are at a moment in history. And I think we need all of those perspectives, and really the disciplines that Tracy has pulled together on this panel are diverse. The presentations you're going to see are all incredibly creative, and so let's get down to it. Our first presenter is Itamar Gilad. He's a product manager for interactive video at YouTube. You know about YouTube's Annotations technology. I discovered this. This is my tip of the day. If you want innovative media, hire 20-somethings. You know, the young man that worked for me who was on the weekends a YouTuber said, you know, the week it came out, we've got to use this. And I think it may be it was launched in 2008, the piece of technology that's created more interactive media than any other piece of technology, because it's coupled with the amazing creativity of the YouTube community around the world, which, as you know, is the largest video platform in history. So there's all kinds of uses, and Itamar is going to share some of his insights about how that platform is being used.
Thank you, Nick, and thanks, Tracy, for inviting me here. It's a great honor, and I want to share with you some of our learnings and experiences with interactive video in YouTube. And as you can see, we have quite a few of it. But one thing became apparent as I listened to all this amazing stuff yesterday and today. When we speak of interactive video in YouTube, being a website, of course, and a video web platform, we have slightly a different definition. Because if you look at YouTube today, by many of the definitions made here, we're already interactive. All our videos play on demand. All our ads are clickable. People can share, people can leave comments, people can build playlists. So there's a lot of interaction going on already in YouTube. But we were sort of interested to take it to the next level and think about how can we make video even more interactive? How can the viewing experience, while actually viewing the video, how can users interact with the video? And if you like, it's a bit about marrying the passive viewing experience with the interactive function of web pages or applications. So this is basically my goal, and I hope to achieve it. Another thing we are about is social media. So we're very excited about giving our users tools to enhance their videos. Not just upload them and just have them lie there, but actually make them more exciting. So this is why a few years ago we created this project called YouTube Annotations. If you upload a video into YouTube, you'll find it there along with other creator tools we just make available. And this is not just for our premium partners, this is also for my mother, if she ever got around uploading a video to YouTube. And basically what you're seeing here is the editor that we make available. I don't know if you can see all the details, but annotations themselves are these little things. They are overlays that you can put on your video, and they break up into two parts. There's text, annotations, titles, speech bubbles, notes, and there's this thing which is called a spotlight, and it's all about creating hotspots within your video. The rest of what you're seeing here on the screen, this is playtime, and these are controls just to control the attributes of the annotations, color, text, etc. Maybe the more interesting part, except for decorating your video with text, is making it interactive. And this we do with what we call links. You can associate with any of these annotations a link, and a link might link to a video, a playlist, a channel, which is kind of like your microsite on YouTube. And it can also link to actions. It can cause the user to subscribe to your channel so they get notification of your new videos. It can get them to post video responses, which is something you can do on YouTube, etc. So by any measure, this is not the most sophisticated content authoring tool in the world. Definitely creators today have fancier stuff. It's kind of generic and very flexible. And that's kind of the beauty of it, because instead, we could have taken this in two paths. We could have developed this very sophisticated workflow and sort of hoped that people would just fall into it and use it, or we just could have gave them a set of more generic tools and see and let them teach us what they actually want to do with interactive video. And we sort of followed this other path, mainly because we're lazy. Well, not the engineering team. I have my engineering manager sitting in the crowd, so I can't say this. It's me, the product manager. I'm lazy. So what I want to do is just show you the different use cases that people are creating, and they're amazing. And I think you'll be pleasantly surprised. Just before I do this, let's look a bit about the numbers. So the project was launched in 2008, and we sort of grew it since then and added more functionality. And right now in the system, there's little over 100 million individual annotations, all of these pop-ups, overlays that appear there. And these are the active ones, not deleted ones, not ones on deleted videos, ones you can view today. Every day, 400 million views have annotations in them. That's 1 in 5 views on YouTube. You know that on YouTube, there's about 2 billion views a day. So it's a fair amount of views. That's a lot of annotations. And not all of these videos are necessarily interactive. Some are just having text overlays on them, but still a fair amount of them are. So I think by any measure, this is one of the bigger interactive video projects out there, and one of the most successful ones. And how do we know that it's successful? Both from the views, but also from click-through rate. People actually click on annotations a lot. And it sort of makes sense, because unlike perhaps sometimes ads that are just in the way, annotations actually enhance the video. They actually is a way to enrich your video with interactivity. And partners and advertisers keep telling us that's one of the favorite tools to use. They get engagement with it, and maybe most importantly, they get a lot of cross-promotion. They get you, if you watch one video, they use annotation to drive you to other videos. So let's just jump into the use cases. Let's start off, I'm going to take you sort of from the simple to the more complex. Let's start off with what people, like casual users, amateurs usually use annotations for. So one thing is just to add text and information to your video. I don't know if you can read this, but this guy is advertising an Acura for sale. And you can see the price, you can see the details. It's all in the video. He just made a very creative sort of ad for this car. This guy went to Disney and is sharing this with his friends, and is adding narration to tell him what just happened. Gamers, very active on YouTube. So what they love to do is actually, as they play a game, they record it, and they sort of upload it to YouTube, and they add narration and commentary saying, this is what I was thinking when this guy was shooting at me, and etc. And they just love it. Their friends all watch the video and get this additional layer of information. And finally, and this is usually kids do that, a lot of people just use annotation in a playful manner. They just add them, they just conduct annotation, they're attacked by annotation, they just do little animations using annotations just to make it more fun for their friends as they're sharing this. And some of these videos get maybe 11 views, but at least this additional layer makes it more interesting. Moving on, another type of video you can find on YouTube and it's very useful is tutorials and step-by-step guides. And whether it is that you're interested to know what are the different parts in this hideous ant's head, or learn how to do an origami bird, or how to use Photoshop, or how to look like Lady Gaga, or whatever this look is, tutorials actually help you do this. And tutorials with this added layer of annotations actually make it richer. Let me give you an example. I'm going to do something we haven't seen that much in this conference. I'm going to show you some real videos from a live site, not recorded, so this might fail. Before I do, bear in mind, the people who created this, most of them are not professionals. They just used the tool on their content and just enriched it. So it may not be flashy, but it's very much alive. It's not some beautiful concept that someone created to sell an idea to you. So let's, after this preamble, let's just go into it. Okay, this guy is giving a guitar tutorial. This is Teen Spirit. Let's see if we can hear this. Yeah. Now let's add the layer of annotation. And what you can see here is the guy actually wrote tabs, which is a form of notes dedicated to guitars. And he's also using speech bubbles, those funny little speech bubbles, to give you tips about how to use and play this segment. So I don't know how many of you play guitars, but this is an extremely useful piece of video. This actually shows you exactly how to do everything, including the notes. Calls to action. This is something that most people, that's sort of the first thing on their mind when they think annotations. I'm going to put my video and I'm going to promote stuff over it. So some of these people are actually premium content owners, like the Jimmy Kimmel Live show, they upload a lot of clips every day. But on every one of these clips, and I'm sure you can't read this, it says watch Jimmy Kimmel Live weekdays at midnight on NBC. So basically it's a call for action or an upsell if you like. Here, enjoy this clip on YouTube, but actually be aware that the content is alive on TV. Same here with RTV, which is a Spanish broadcaster. They want you to know that more content is available on their site. And of course, our partners, they also promote themselves in a very YouTube-y way. In YouTube, it's kind of a view economy. So what they actually want you to do is to subscribe to their channel or to give them a thumbs up. Both of these things will sort of improve the rating overall in YouTube. They'll make them show up in search, so they really want people to promote this. Now, some people would say that this is spammy, and definitely if you use this, you overuse this, and maybe you leave the annotation there for too long, they just don't go away. This is kind of annoying. So what we're doing about this is sort of educating, give people tools and feedback about the response of the users to these annotations so they can sort of learn and optimize and make the calls for action less high profile. Discover and cross-promotion. I talked about this. I said that some creators actually get as much as 20% of their views out of annotation. And this is huge. If you think of all the ways people discover videos today, there's search, there's browsing inside the site, and there's also sharing on Facebook, just by sharing through email or whatever. And annotations, for some people who know how to use them, are actually becoming a very important tool. So let me give you an example for that. Anyone here from England or the UK? Oh, we have one. So in your country, there's a party called the Labour Party. You might have heard of them. And they actually realized something important. A lot of the potential voters are on YouTube. So they created 7 different videos, these animated videos, and put them on YouTube. And they just wanted to interconnect them in some way. So let's see how they've done it. So let me just play this video. And this is all about
and his wife Jane.
What they offer and why you should vote for them, of course. And all through this video,
And they've got family. All right,
let
then.
me find one.
How does a new industrial
There's these little things, which are all clickable. As they mention the concept, they just add this burnt-in thumbnail and let you just click on it and find the relevant video that explains or expands on it. And just in case you didn't click on anything, just right at the end, you have all of them. And then you can just click on any one of those. And did you see this interactivity? I just click on something from the live site, and I can just see what they had in mind, and I can always navigate back. So the interesting thing about this is that they created this entire video just for YouTube, and we can see this by the look of their thumbnails. If you look at these specific thumbnails, they're shaped, the corners are shaped exactly like our Spotlight annotations, which means they actually custom created the video for YouTube and for Annotations, just to show you how much this is baked into the workflow today of creators. Here's another example of cross-promotion, and this is a bit more advanced. This guy is a video blogger, and he's video blogging about the iPad 2. And he did 5 other videos, and he's just promoting them using these burned-in video thumbnails. And at any point, you can click on any of these other thumbnails and view these videos. And from our experience, this kind of burn-in thumbnails actually get very nice click-through rate, much more than if you just put text around it or put it around the video. If it's in the video, it's actually going to be clicked much more often. So, some example of discovery and cross-promotion. Perhaps more interesting is dialogue and audience participation. I said that we're a social media platform, and in social media, it's a two-way dialogue. It's not just you broadcasting to the viewers, you also want them to talk to you back, to tell you what's working, what's not, what they like about you and what not, and to make it more interesting for them. Because on YouTube, anyone can actually post a comment or post a video in response. So this guy, anyone here recognize him? Do you know who this is? Oh, you know him. His name is Joe Penna. He's one of the YouTube stars. He's like one of this tier of really, really talented people who just made a living off YouTube. And he goes by the nickname Mystery Guitar Man. He's a superbly talented guy. He does a lot of videos that have to do with music. And every video is different. Every video surprises you. Every different video is creative. In this specific video, he thought of a clever way to get people to post videos in response to him and to drive more views. You see this little button he burned into the video, and he just encourages people to click on it and post videos. And they posted. All of these are video responses, videos that people actually responded to his video. And there were like, I guess, 100 of them at some point. Let me show you how he did this exactly. Let me just play this video.
For today's video, I'm actually going to give you guys a challenge. On this channel, I've uploaded a whole bunch of unlisted videos. And they're all me playing every note on the piano, every note on the guitar, doing some drum stuff and some vocal stuff. For all the video editors out there, your job is to cut together a video using these notes. On the description of every video, I've included a download link, and there are basically no rules for this. You guys go crazy and do whatever you want. You can use any of the footage that's on that video. You can change the sound. I'm including like some MIDI things and like that for you guys. You can include a video of yourself playing along with me. You can use footage from my old videos. Anything that you want, you can do. I'm going to pick the 10 best entries, and I'm going to put up a polling goal. Put up a poll.
So it's basically a challenge. It's a competition. It just encourages these people to view these other videos with the music notes on them and to mash them up in different ways and to upload the result. Of course, the other videos are linkable through annotations. So all of these are these other videos. And this is clever in a number of ways. First, it causes people to be more interested in this video because it's kind of a challenge and people are always interested to see who's the winner and what they can do about it. Second, every one of these other videos need to be watched as well if you want to partake in the competition. And as I said, in YouTube, our partners are actually rewarded for views, so it's actually driving more views to his account. It's also good for the users because they can sort of ride on the halo of Mystery Guitar Man, a hugely popular YouTube star, and once they post their video, especially if they're the winners, they'll get a ton of views, and it's really important for them. One more thing to note about this. This guy, Joe Penna, I don't know if he knows Flash programming, HTML, JavaScript? I'm guessing not. Still, he can implement all of this without knowing any of these things. Just a few short years ago, he needed to have a Flash designer or someone do all of this for him over the video to burn these links, to do all this work. Otherwise, it would not be possible. But Annotations sort of enable everyone to do this kind of rich stuff. So let me show you just one or two examples. Not everything is beautiful, but here's one example of the responses.
Glasses and I realized that I've arrived cause it take more than a magazine to kill my vibe does. He write his own rhymes or sort of. I think I mean I forgot better shit than you ever thought.
So you get the point. People just mashed up stuff and created, and all of these are other responses. Some of them are really terrible. I'll spare you. But if you're interested, you can find all of this on YouTube and spend hours and be sorry about it. Interactive ads. We have, it's a growing field. It's not very, very mainstream yet, but we're starting to see the direction. So one form of interactive ads, and this is what people usually associate with interactive ads, is what the French Connection has done on YouTube. They created what they call the boutique, a YouTube boutique. They uploaded videos with all their latest fashion, clothing, and each item you see there is clickable using annotation. It will take you to their site where you can find information and can purchase. And of course, you can navigate to other videos. But let me show you a slightly different example that goes even a step further. This is Google Mobile, and they wanted to promote Google Search by Voice. So let's see how they've done this.
Calories burned in a hot tub.
So basically this chubby guy is wondering how many calories he's losing by sitting in a hot tub. And he did this by asking his phone, his Android phone, and activating search by voice. And he got a bunch of results. This is Google search results. The nice thing is that each of these results are actually real results that you can find on the web, and they're all clickable. For example, we have the LA Times, an article about this, and here's Yahoo Answers. So why don't we just click on it and see what happens there? And you see how many calories can I burn in a hot tub. So the smart thing about this is it sort of engages you because it takes you into the experience of the ad. It sort of draws you. It not just shows you the product and lets you click on it. You can slightly experience what's going on with this product or service. Here are a couple of even richer examples that have been posted on YouTube. How many of you have seen the Tipex ad? This one, with the bear and the hunter. So this was a very viral sort of video where basically they created this custom app where this guy, the hunter, is using a giant Tipex roller to create space, and then you can type in this space different verbs. Like hunter shoots the bear, hunter chases the bear, hunter has some sort of relationship with the bear. Just use your imagination. And for each of those that the user types in, Tipex uploaded this hidden video that sort of matches this. If you say marries the bear, you can actually see the hunter and the bear sort of comically getting married. And people just loved it and posted it. Another example is the Desperados ad. Desperados is a kind of light beer. And it sort of starts as a normal video, but it sort of pulls you into it and gives you challenges, and you need to subscribe with Facebook and whatever. And as you do, you're pulled into the party, and it just grows and grows, and as you can see, the party explodes out of the player. Both of these were done with custom players. Am I out of time?
Yeah, I was just wondering how that...
Okay, so I'm rushing. Games and quizzes. I won't go into this, but people are actually creating a lot of very fancy games, anything from racing to quizzes to even arcade game. This is blowing our minds because we didn't expect this. And there's a lot of other forms of interactivity. Let me just give you one example real quick, if I have a second. Absolutely. So here's a quick example. This is Subaru, and they shot this rally race with 4 different camera angles. And just by clicking on an annotation, you can switch to a different camera angle. yet another form of interactivity which we didn't really anticipate. And it's not that we did anything fancy, they did all the work for us. So, and of course there's branching storylines and other forms of interactivity. To summarize, what we found over these 3 years of experimentation is that overlay text and annotation are very, very sticky and very, very powerful, and they reward the creators in many different ways. They improve the storytelling ability, they do cross-promotion engagement, and they pay return on investment of, in views, sharing, audience, etc. Actually, we sort of cultivated a new generation of creators that think in 4 dimensions. They already think about the interactive layer as they're making the video. It's very cardinal for them. And maybe the key learning for us is that the best way to implement interactivity, which is kind of an unknown today, is to just give a platform with a very generic and powerful set of tools and let the users actually tell you what works and what doesn't. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Itamar. Thank you. So a question that comes to me, an irritating one when I think about what I saw in preparation for our next speaker is, how many of you are happy with your electronic program guide on your cable or other provider? Anybody happy with your program guide? That's amazing. You can't, the audience lights aren't up, but there's no hands at all. One. All right, there you go. That's because you worked on it. Nobody is. You know, how many, 50 years after the TV Guide invented the grid, we're still living with it. And not for lack of trying. We have, you know, all the way back to the full service network and before that Cube and hundreds of others, and every designer I know, several of them sitting in the front row of design, EPGs that involve all sorts of other ways that users can find and discover the content. Olivier Lacour is responsible for the design studio department at NDS, where he led the development of Snowflake. Have you seen Snowflake? Well, if you haven't, you're going to. And I want to give his card to my cable operator. So.
Yeah, I need it. Yes. Thank you so much, Nick. Any chance to display something? All right, fantastic. I'm here to talk about the user experience, and to talk about that at large, I will be happy to talk about Zone more specifically, because it happened recently. Zone is actually a triple play operator, which is acting in Portugal, and it is our first Snowflake launch, which happened in last January. So this is what we're going to talk about. So what's the situation in December, actually? In December, this is the user experience at large that any customer of Zone can see and enjoy. Honestly, 2 problems. First of all, having TV in mind, it's very weak from a branding perspective. There is no consistency in the moment of the relation between the Zone brand and the user regarding the graphics, the message, and not mentioning the fact that the UI itself is not branded at all. Actually, the Portugal Telecom, the competitor of Zone, has the exact same UI, but the logo in the corner, which is super weak in terms of marketing differentiation. The second problem, which is my favorite one, is that it's super complex. Remote control is 45 buttons, and the UI looks like coming from last century, influenced by PowerPoint and things like that. This is from far not acceptable today. So we've been working on that. And this is what we started from. We actually started with an ad, which in Portuguese says that there is a line that splits my world from the rest of the world. And this is quite abstract to start up with, but this is the starting of the story. We've been making sure that such an ad as an abstract message is detailed from an experience perspective on the website, which, as you can see, is also branded in a very consistent way. We made sure to have a Facebook page in order to touch, the young generation, which we targeted first. And we've been also jointly with CLM BBDO Portugal designing a TV ad that has been rolled out on primetime TV for a month, and I'm pleased to roll that for you. Let's go.
Há uma linha que separa o que eu procuro do que eu encontro. Basta pedir-lhe com as palavras certas. Uma linha que separa aquilo com que não perco tempo daquilo a que dedico horas, semanas, meses, anos da minha vida, que grava na memória o que eu gravo no coração. Há uma linha que me compreende.
Nova Iris Bison Fibra. Torna a pesquisa fácil, grava séries inteiras e organiza todas as gravações. Iris não é televisão, é a tua visão. Liga 16 990.
So as she says, it's a line that understands her. It's picturing the fact that we've been considering the user at the center of the system. And as you can see, it's not about the features. It's not about the gigs or the hard drive or whatever. It's about the emotion and the simplicity of the experience that we are designing. By the way, the claim is it's not television, it's my vision, in Portuguese. Appears also that Zone is having some multiplex theaters in Portugal, actually 25, and we've been producing booths in order to provide anybody and everybody actually an hands-on experience, because we knew from focus group that once people used it for the first time, they fully understood it and they got the full advantage of it. So this booth has been, this 25 booths actually, has been installed in every theater in Portugal in order to provide everybody the possibility to enjoy the product once being advertised. And to welcome everybody on the booth, we've been also designing the dress of the girls. That's our French thing. And we also redesigned fully the shops themselves in order to make sure that people who were attracted by the ad had a consistent experience down to the point of sale. Hopefully, they got out of the point of sale with a box, which appears to be a very simplified and very small box. A power on-off button, that's all there is on top of this one. And along with that box, there is a remote control, which, as you can see, still looks as a remote control, but simplified down to a point where the only buttons that you need is actually up, down, left, right, OK, back, and home. That's all you need. Because we've been taking that go-to-market of Snowflake very seriously, we've been adding the digits that you don't necessarily need to drive the system, but that could be helpful for managing legacy, and we didn't want any problem within the go-to-market. The remote control can also be seen as an app, which is running on the iPhone. And actually, the way it works is you up, down, left, right, OK on the pad, so you don't have to look at it. And you just can set the volume. That's all you can do, but that's probably the cheapest and the most effective remote control that we designed, and we are very happy about it. Now, we also designed and produced tutorials that are loaded on the box, that are also visible from the website and YouTube. These tutorials are designed to promote and teach people how to use it by addressing very specific use case. This movie is actually capturing the UI. We did not post-produce it. It's a snapshotting the real user experience. So there is absolutely no gap between the movie that you can see here and the real experience from the box. From a pure design perspective, we decided to have to provide a very full screen experience, as you know, TV being still a killer app. We paid a lot of attention on the fonts and the readability of it. Even though you know, they are very thin, we made it sure that these fonts were readable and displayed in the best way we could. By the way, at this stage, I have to say that working at NDS with 6,000 engineers helps to achieve that kind of level into the graphic design. Otherwise, if you are like a separated agency, there is almost no way to get it. So as you can see, it's super fluid, and this is V1, by the way, but we released V2 1 month after the first launch, and we improved the performance by 2, basically. So it slides like you expect that it slides. So you got the idea of the thing. Now, this UI being Snowflake-based is, of course, running on any devices seamlessly. There is not a single specification, not anything you have to learn, whether you boot the application from your TV, your iPad, your iPhone, or even your Mac. It's the same thing. Facts and learnings out of that launch, which appears in January. This is public thanks to our friends of Zon. 3 things. The VOD. We increased the sales of VOD by 160%, which is cool because the catalog did not change. The price of the asset did not change. So we could measure the impact of having a nice design, as you can see. The ARPU increased by €10, which is interesting in the way that it has to be put in perspective that the ARPU on every year from Zone was getting down from €7. So we not only stopped the decrease, we actually boosted up by 10. And the last factor, which is key, is the fact that thanks to the feedback we got, people love the product, 85% of them, and I think it's also key having that in mind. It's not only about money, it's about the experience itself. So voilà, I'm done. This was before, and this is now. As you can see, it's super consistent in terms of branding, and it is very easy to use. So we are very happy about that. And I thank you all.
Beautiful. And our final presentation is it's so good it has to have 2 people. Nathan Shedroff is one of the pioneers of experience design, and he currently is the chair of the MBA program in design strategy, which is an interesting major at the California College of the Arts. Among his other talents, and you'll see some of them, Nathan is head of the League of Nathans, which is a tidbit that I learned when I was talking with his co-presenter, Chris Nussel, Chris is the director of interaction design at San Francisco-based agency Cooper. And these two guys are writing a book about the relationship between science fiction films and interface design. And some of that they're going to show to you today. Take it away, guys.
Right, so we don't have a lot of time to go into the whole project, but we've been watching a lot of science fiction films and television for the last 3 or 4 years, pulling out lessons for interaction designers to actually use in their current day work. And this has been an awesome thing for us to do, but a very interesting thing to inform our work. When Tracy asked us to present today, we thought we'd do a deep dive into science fiction, how television is depicted in science fiction and what we could find. And essentially we found almost nothing, very, very little television shown or any kind of interfaces around television that are serious in science fiction. So I actually think that there's a huge amount of opportunity there to use science fiction as a prototyping and learning mechanism or process to figure out what the television of tomorrow might be. Chris is going to do a deep dive into a chapter he's just finished all on gestures, because gestures are sort of elevating right now in the public consciousness and in terms of our technology.
Cool. So 2 notes. We're running a little bit long, so please stay and forego a few cookies so that we can get through all this stuff. Second is that when I present, I get a little energetic and I can't bear sitting down, so forgive me. Okay. And then I'm going to ask you also to dim the lights because everything interesting is going to happen up here. Okay, so as Nathan said, we're writing a book about lessons from interface design. And when we took a look at the gestural interfaces, we ran into sort of 2 main things. I'm blocking you guys' view. My apologies. I'll try and move around a bit. But the 2 sort of main things that we found when we took a look at the gestural interfaces in the history of sci-fi are going to be the core of our presentation. The first is we found sort of an emerging dialogue that we're calling sort of Hollywood's pigeon. And the second thing we found was about embodied interaction and sort of the stress you have about the narrative mode. What do those things mean? We'll get those in a second. So let's sort of dive in. If you're not familiar with the term pigeon, what it is sort of a linguistic term that describes an early language that is emerging between 2 cultures. You have to figure out how to talk to each other. And in fact, that's sort of what's going on. There is no sort of centralized czar of gestural interfaces in Hollywood, but yet there are some patterns that we're seeing. Let me back up for a second. To actually sort of discover this pigeon, what we did is we took a look at every single gestural interface that we had in our survey of movies and television. And then we took a look at what was happening on screen versus what the result was in the system. So we were able to create something of a vocabulary for each one. And then we went and said, okay, what patterns exist? What gestures mean the same thing between a different television or a different movie? And from that, we actually got this glossary that's sort of emerging. And there are 7 vocabulary words in the gestural pigeon. And I don't think many of them will be surprising, but I'm going to go through with them hopefully pretty quickly. So the first one is wave to activate. By wave, we just mean sort of saying, hello, I'm here. For each of these, we actually found generally more than 2 examples, but I'm only going to show 2 in the interest of brevity. The first one comes from our first gestural interface that we found in our survey, which is all the way back from 1951, in the day the Earth stood still. So in this particular scene, we see Klaatu, the alien, sort of walking into his spaceship, and he begins to activate and deactivate things with a simple wave. Pretty cool that this was about 60 years ago. Oh no, exactly 60 years ago. There is some audio. It's not vital, but later it might sort of prove good. We can't see a thing here, so I'm going to just describe a lot of it for you. This is from a film called Johnny Mnemonic. And in this scene, Johnny is like having to wipe a bit of blood from his nose in the restroom. To do that, he simply waves his hand over the faucet. So 2 examples that show that sort of waving to activate. This was in 1995, and I think O'Hare already had touchless faucets, but most people hadn't experienced it. It was still kind of sci-fi. The second word in our gestural pigeon is push to move. And by push, I mean a very specific action, which is I see this thing, and I want to put it there. First example that we have is from Minority Report. Everyone knows this one, but in this particular scene, John Anderton is sort of scrubbing some video, and he accidentally turns to shake the hand of Danny Whitworth and almost loses his work, and then sort of moves the video stream back, almost as if it were a physical action. Yeah, here's a thing, I want to push it that way. The next example actually comes from Iron Man 2. Again, a little bit hard to see, but in this case, the computer system, Jarvis, has just done a scan of this old festival, and Tony Stark is lifting it up and moving it to a place where he can work. And he does it, again, as if it were a physical object, using his fingers to sort of manipulate, and then even at the end of the gesture, he gives it a push, and there's a little bit of momentum there to the object, which is sort of nice. The third word in our gestural pigeon is turn to rotate. Again, sort of a physical-based metaphor. Somebody uses their fingertips in order to touch opposite sides of an object and move it around an axis. Our first example comes from the television show Firefly, and Simon Tam is sort of investigating a live brain scan of his sister. And he's sort of holding the invisible edges of like an X-ray. A second example comes from a less-known work, Chrysalis, a French film from 2007, which this scene is particularly about a surgeon doing telesurgery on a patient in Mexico. This one's going to be really hard to see. It's dark in the original, and we can see it great in the monitor, but up here you can barely see it. There's a doctor here. She'll appear, and then there's a holographic projection of a patient on the table. And this is a real short clip, but what you can see is she sort of lifts the heart up out of the body of her patient in order to work on it. So there she is, plays again. Those little dots you see are actually sort of lights on her fingertips. They took a cue from Minority Report in that case. Fourth one is swipe to dismiss. This is a really unsatisfying verb because by swipe, I actually mean to push away from the center of the body with a bit of force without looking at the destination. We don't have a great verb for that. But the first one is Iron Man 2. Tony Stark is sort of walking around his lab with Pepper Potts, and he's sort of dismissing these things that he doesn't want to deal with at the moment. And to do so, he pushes away from his body while looking forward. We should solve that sound problem before too long, because at the end of this, I want to show you a complete screen, a complete video. The second example is from Minority Report 2002. Again, John Anderton is looking at a scrubbing interface. He's like done with it, does the same thing, just pushes it away without looking at where he's going. And there it goes. There's our audio. Great, thank you. That'll come up more useful in a bit. The fifth is tap to select. No surprise, we all grew up with buttons, and it plays itself out in gestural interfaces. One example from District 9 has the alien, whose name is Chris, actually interacting with what looks like a touchscreen, but it's actually a gestural interface because it's holographic. The second one comes from Matrix Reloaded in 2003. The sort of security team of the human city of Zion works in this sort of VR space, and they use their fingertips in order to make selections and change modes within their interface. Let's see, number 6 is Extend to Shoot. Anyone who's played Cowboys and Indians should recognize this one. Lost in Space in 1998, Will is sort of joining his family on the dangerous spaceship inside of a holographic suit. And when the bad guy shows up, he's able to shoot just using his arms. And then the second example here is from Iron Man, which if you saw the movie, it's no surprise. Tony Stark extends his hands to fire his repulsor rays. And the last word in our gestural vocabulary is pinch and spread to scale. There's no physical analog for this, but it's very familiar to you if you use an iPad or an iPhone. You simply grab opposite edges of a thing and sort of extend your hand. First example also comes from Chrysalis, when she takes that heart that she's lifted out of her patient and sort of makes it bigger so it's at a level of detail that she can work on. There she is, scaling it large. Hopefully when we get to the clip, we'll be able to see it. And then Iron Man 2. Again, that gestural interface there. Tony is considering this element that he wants to create, and he wants to see it big, so he claps his hands and throws them up, and suddenly he's sort of inside of this molecule that he can take a look at. A few minutes later in the same scene, after he's done looking at it, he shrinks it back down just so he can take a look at it and marvel at it like a glowing blue orb in his hand. Okay, so that's the entire pigeon that we found. There are no other patterns. Of course there are other gestures, but none of them, they're all particular to their property or particular to their domain. Just like real language, 7 vocabulary words don't make communication. They have to be strung together in meaningful ways. And in this, we wanted to show you the clip from Chrysalis, which actually shows this sort of beautiful telesurgery that Dr. Brunner is performing on this patient in Mexico. We're going to see if it's visible, because if not, I can just skip on. So yeah, it's not really visible. That's Dr. Brunner on the left, and then we have a team behind the window sort of watching her work. If you have a moment, check out the film. It's got the sort of one of the best gestural interfaces that we've seen throughout the entire survey. So the question is, okay, so we've got these 7 vocabulary words that are sort of emergent out of sci-fi. Hollywood people thinking, what will audiences understand? And audiences sort of responding to these things. Well, what's left? Well, if you imagine any useful software that you have, there's a whole lot that's left, right? One thing to note about all these gestural vocabulary words is they're all physical in nature. I'm pressing a button, I am moving an object, I am turning a thing. But there's loads of abstract things that we need software to do that gestural interfaces really just can't deal with. And that takes us to the first lesson from this chapter, which that's what our book is about, Lessons for Interface Designers, is that gestures are cool for physical things, but they're incomplete. Every interface that uses gestures to get natural has to be blended and add some other layer for, like, oh, say text entry, or you saw my fake hand signing there, or even saying, hey, I want to see that sci-fi show from 1987. I think there was a guy who ate cancer in it, right? How do you do that with gestural? You need some additional layer of interface. All right, how am I doing on time? We're right at the end of my time, so hold on, since we were running long. 5 minutes, hopefully there'll be cookies left when we're done. All those other interfaces that we showed so far, except for one, are disembodied. The user does not see a representation of his or her own form, or even something he's controlling within that space. However, there's another type of gestural interface called embodied interfaces that are gestural, and that's where the user actually sees something that says, oh, I am that and I'm controlling it. When you get into an embodied interaction, you run into a problem that they have in literature. Is it first person, meaning is the user saying, I am that thing? Second person, of course, is, oh, you are that thing. And third person is that omniscient narrator who's saying, oh, there are things happening. In the first person, when it comes to gestural interfaces, that first person is me, the user. And when we take a look at sci-fi, we can only find like one really good example of that. Well, we see a couple. We see the Lost in Space example we saw earlier, but we also see a great film out of Mexico, which was an indie science fiction film from 2008 called The Sleep Dealers. And in this scene, Mimo, who is a guy who lives in Tijuana, is doing remote work in San Diego by a gestural interface. In this scene, we see him clicking in to the device for the first time, donning his oxygen mask and his special contact lenses. And as soon as they turn on, he is able to embody a robot construction worker on the remote site in San Diego. Click, that's in his hand, that's in his hand. That's the oxygen mask that you can barely see. And then he puts in his contacts. We might be able to see it, but it's kind of gory and gross. They sort of glow a bright blue. Boom. Nope, and there he is sort of seeing his own mechanical arms in the construction site. You don't see what the robot looks like till a little later in the film, but I wanted to show you. What this does is sort of illustrates a problem that gestural first-person interfaces have that when you look at the survey of sci-fi you find. Because in any embodied first-person interaction, you've got this conflict between what the person can do and what the thing can do. When they match up well, like I'm going to extend my arm, that construction robot is going to extend its arm, there's no problem. If the person could do something like jump that the robot can't do, not a problem, you can ignore the input. But if the thing can do something that the human cannot, suddenly you're faced again with that need for a blended interface. One great example comes from Lost in Space. I'll try and point it out to you. What we're seeing is the robot sort of retreating now from the evil space spiders. And there is actually a laser coming from the head of the robot that's aiming in addition to the two lasers that Will has that he's shooting with his hands. How the heck is he doing that? His hands are occupied actually controlling the shots of the robot, and his legs are occupied and sort of moving the thing. Now, we're designers, and we can, of course, think of loads of ways that could happen. It could be the residual AI that normally controls the robot. It could be gaze monitoring. But the point is that there's got to be some other system other than the gestures involved. Third person, really common in literature, really common in gaming, really rare in sci-fi. One example we have is from Johnny Mnemonic. Hopefully this will be visible. Johnny's in a car. He's having a phone conversation with what he thinks is an agent about to make a deal. There's the agent there. There's Johnny there. But what he's actually talking with is a puppet. And the puppet is being controlled by a villain by the name of Takahashi. Takahashi has his hand above a scanner, and he's sort of moving a little hand puppet like this. And that's how he's making the spy talk. So he's not standing in front of a camera and saying, I am now this spy. He's saying, here, let's go meet Johnny. It's an example of a third-person interaction. Why this isn't more common, I don't know. You can imagine in Attack of the Clones that the generals could stand in front of that beautiful holographic sand table and sort of say, okay, you robots, go attack them. And you planes, zoom in like this and attack that. But we don't see it. Speaking of rarity, second person, which is really rare in literature, I can count the number, like on one hand, the number of books that I've read that actually say, you get up in the morning, you go get your coffee, you're feeling upset. And it's even rarer in interface design. In fact, we couldn't find a single one in sci-fi. We did find it in the real world with the Mac OS 7.5 at Apple Guide, where when you go ask for something, it sort of takes control of the screen, shows you how to do stuff. I'm going to zip past really quickly. And pull back. Because A, we're out of time, but B, well, I want to get to the sort of the lessons, is that when we look at the things in sci-fi, what we find in the narrative mode and the embodied interactions tell us that you need to use first person for telepresence, I am there, second person probably for help, though how that works with a gestural interface is something we're still working out, and the third is that for third person, it's going to categorize everything else. I am controlling that robot, I am controlling this puppet. That's all the time. Thank you very much. There's loads more to talk about this, but we are sort of done. The last thing I'll leave you with is the URL for our upcoming book. Thanks.
Wow. Well, we were compressed a little bit because of the setup time, so I don't think we have time for Q&A. Thank you so much for your attention. I don't know how you feel, but I'm ready for a cookie after all of that. Wonderful work, guys. Thanks.